everyone. Happy Friday. I wanted to spend a little time reading this book to you. It's a little bit longer of a book, but I figured it was a weekend and it's kind of nice to have a book to listen to. So this is part of a series I really like, and I spoke with the publisher today actually, and it is Quarto Books. So thank you very much to them for allowing me to read this. This video will be up for probably about a month. They're really generously allowing reading rights during this time. So I have 3 of these books, and I'll probably get through each one in the next month. But this is on Claude Monet, and this is on a Monet scarf, which is kind of fun. But since we just did a color episode, I really love Monet's use of color. He's an Impressionist painter. So I thought I would leave you for the weekend with this book about Monet and see if you can spot his paintings in here. So again, thank you. Quarto Books is the publisher, and it's illustrated by Caroline Bonmuller. I hope I'm saying that right. And it's written by Lucy Brownridge. Portrait of an Artist, Claude Monet. Claude Monet grew up in a pretty and blustery little port town in the north of France. Claude had lots of friends. They loved him because he drew funny charcoal sketches of them, called caricatures. As he grew older, he realized that in the big city of Paris, people might even pay him to draw silly pictures of them. And so, as a teenager, he went there to make a living. Claude came home from Paris to see his family, and he met an artist named Eugene Boudin. Eugene noticed that young Claude had a rare and special talent, and with a little help, he could become a brilliant artist. Eugene thought that a real artist needed to learn how to use serious, tricky materials like oil paint and paint landscapes. This is a landscape. Instead of people. So Eugene spent all summer teaching Claude as much as he could. And then we would call this a seascape because it's like a landscape, but it's of the sea. After trying oil painting, Claude wanted to go to art school in Paris and train properly. As soon as he arrived at the school, he made best friends with another student named Camille Pizarro. Claude and Camille were desperate to paint the changing seasons and all the colors in the setting sun. They were disappointed to find that at school they learned how to paint detailed still lifes. This is a still life. And historic battle scenes. Still, together the friends dreamed about all the things they would paint when they had finished school. Claude liked to paint outside. It made him feel closer to nature, but it was not a very normal thing to do. At that time, this wasn't very normal. And people thought he was strange. One person didn't think it was strange was Claude's friend, Camille Devereux. Claude loved to paint her in the beautiful gardens of Paris. Camille had lots of ideas for where she could stand in his pictures. Her ideas were so good, sometimes he couldn't decide between them, and would paint her 4 times in the same picture. They inspired each other, and the unusual young pair fell deeply in love. Claude and his best friends, Camille Pizarro and Alfred Sicily, spent sunny afternoons down by the river Seine. That's a famous river in Paris. But they didn't go there to swim like everyone else. Instead, the friends tried over and over again to paint the bright sun as it danced on the water. So this is one of his real paintings. The shimmering water was always moving as the bathers splashed and made shadows on the surface. This made the water a very tricky thing to put into paint. It was like a hard puzzle. Claude was thrilled when he painted a brushstroke that looked just like a glint of sun. He made a brushstroke just like a glint of sun. Claude was happy. He married Camille and loved painting the river. Soon the Monets had their first baby, Jean. But nobody wanted to buy Claude's strange, splodgy pictures of rivers, and now there were 3 of them to feed. Claude felt terribly worried. He knew that he needed to make some more money, or else his little family would starve. Just as Claude was deciding what he should do, war hit Paris, and it was no longer safe to stay there with his little family. They packed their bags and moved to London along with with lots of their friends. Claude was excited because he had a new river to paint. It was the River Thames, which flowed right through the middle of London. In London, he visited galleries and was amazed by what he saw. He saw paintings by Constable filled with a wonderful warm light, and others by Turner, which showed the whole sky swirling around in a way Claude never had imagined. He was desperate to do what they had done, but in his own way. So he painted and painted until... Look! Maybe you recognize it. He made pictures he called Impression Sunrise. Once the war passed, he put it on display in Paris alongside pictures by his friends. Out of the 400 paintings, Claude stood out the most. People were astonished by the way the whole scene felt like swirling water, and the sun was so orange. Here it is. It looked almost like it was vibrating. From this day on, Claude and his friends became known as the Impressionists, after the name of the painting. Claude had done it. He had invented a brand new way of showing water and light. Claude was floating on a cloud of happiness. The war had ended. The show was a success. He celebrated by painting his wonderful wife and family. At this time, his paintings looked drenched in liquid light and soft summer breeze. His hazy and light-dappled paintings looked more like captured memories rather than real scenes. Monet was glad he had painted so many pictures of his happy family. Soon, his beloved Camille became sick just before having their second baby. Eventually, Camille passed away, and Claude and his 2 little boys moved in with friends. They had a wonderful garden by Claude's beloved river Seine. He spent many hours on the river, painting and deep in thought. Although he missed Camille terribly, Claude treasured the paintings he had made of their life together. With darkness in his heart, Claude kept himself going by trying even harder to paint light. Claude knew he had to cheer himself up, and so he started one of his most magical projects. He moved to a beautiful stone house with a big, empty yard. He spent years filling it with ponds and filling those ponds with water lilies. He planted delicate trees on the banks and built little bridges across the water. In time, he created an oasis of flowers and sparkling water that still exists today. This is a special garden in Paris called Giverny. I have a painting I did of this one, actually. One like this one in art school in France, so I will show you next time. By the time the garden was finished, Claude was growing old and his 2 boys had grown up. He used his freedom to travel to London and Paris and paint his favorite things from his time spent living in each place. He painted his favorite church in Paris, some haystacks near his water lily house, and the Houses of Parliament by the River Thames. He lovingly painted each thing again and again, just to make sure he had captured their personalities in every season and every color of sunshine. Claude had captured all that he had marveled at as a young man back in his dingy art school. His final challenge was to paint the waterscape in his own garden. He painted huge canvases of water lilies that wrapped the whole way around a large room. When he stood in the middle of them, it was as though he were in the middle of his sparkling ponds. He truly had become the master of light. There you go. Hope you enjoyed the book. Thank you again to Quarto Books and to Lucy Brownridge and Caroline Bonita.